Wardrobe for the Bass True Anglers podcast is brought to you by Basco Fishing. High-performance fishing apparel that can be customized to fit your needs. Do you need to showcase your brand? Does your business need apparel? Do you need a tournament jersey? Visit their website at www.bascofishing.com. Well, get those live vids zipped in clips, strap down those rods, and stow away those tackle bags because we are going fishing. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Bass True Anglers podcast. I'm your host, Keith Nicewonger, and I hope this episode finds you with 5 for 25 in your live well. But if you're stuffing lead weights in those things, Randy Blockett, Luke Duncan, they're going to make a video about you, and everyone will know. Is it too soon? Special thanks to our partners who make this podcast possible. Basco Fishing is the official wardrobe sponsor of the Bass True Anglers podcast. Today, I am wearing the Margarita Seafoam SPF 30 hooded sun shirt. Never thought I'd wear something called Margarita Seafoam, but you gotta say, it does look good. Be sure to check out all the colors, all the styles, and all the different things that Basco Fishing offers by going to their website, bascofishing.com. Of course, you know we are the Western representatives for Duckett Fishing, pro-driven rods, reels, and baits. You know these guys, the strongest pro staff in all professional bass fishing. And it is these same pros that help in the design of all the rods, reels, and baits that Duckett offers. Duckett is building a Western presence, and if you haven't seen it yet, you soon will. New independent dealerships are popping up all the time. Find out about the Duckett lineup of pro-driven rods, reels, and baits by going to their website, duckettfishing.com. Today we have with us the winner of the just completed U.S. Open. Josh Bertrand will be with us, and what a U.S. Open it was. This year, they moved the venue to Lake Mojave because Lake Mead is running out of water. If you follow the U.S. Open over the years, it's always a very, very tight event. If you can catch 5 fish in 3 days, you're going to be in contention. If you can catch 9.5, 10 pounds a day, you probably are going to win. It's always a very, very tough, grueling event. This year they moved the lake to Lake Mojave, and it turned into a monster smallmouth explosion. Took over 60 pounds to finish first. It took over 60 pounds to finish second. I think third was right about 58. What a massive, massive weight for this event. So many 5-pound plus smallmouth. I tell you what, you saw so many fish in that 5-pound class. It was like they were fishing the St. Lawrence River. Just an amazing week for WAN bass. And I think the secret about Lake Mojave is out. The lake's got some fish in it. Wow. Unbelievable. So we'll be talking to Josh in just a few minutes. But first, again, if you like the content we produce on this channel, please hit the subscribe button and do it now. Like this video. I don't care if you like it or not. Like this video. Leave us a comment or two. Always like to hear from people. Hear what you have to say about what we're doing. But remember, hit that subscribe button. Your follow means a lot to us. We're trying to build our viewership on this channel, and everything that you can do is appreciated. Every subscription, every comment, every like. Tell your friends. Tell your friends. Tell your enemies. Tell your enemies. Tell somebody you just want to annoy. But whatever you do, let folks know what we're doing here at the Bass to Anglers podcast. Hit that subscribe button now in case you forgot. Our guest today started on the Elite Series in 2013. He has 4 Bassmaster Classic appearances, and he won an Elite Series event on the St. Lawrence River in 2018. He now fishes on the Bass Pro Tour, has qualified for Red Crest twice. He's also the most recent pro to etch his name in the history books as the winner of the WAN Bass U.S. Open, having just finished that event. Josh Bertrand, welcome to the Bass to Anglers podcast. Thanks for being with us today.
Hey, thank you for having me on, Keith. I'm pretty excited. You guys do a great job, so I'm honored to be on the show.
I appreciate it. You know, I've interviewed several U.S. Open winners over the course of this podcast, and they all talk about how special winning the U.S. Open is. It's an event that I've fished myself. I understand what it's about. Have you had a chance to let all that sink in yet as to where it maybe sits in your all-time career?
Yeah, it's crazy because, and I've talked about this a little bit, in just other places, but there have been several big tournaments that I've had the chance at winning, and I won an Elite Series event. I've won quite a bit of local and regional stuff, and nothing even compares to this. And it's crazy because you take this compared to maybe winning a national level tour event, whether it's a Bass Pro Tour or an Elite Series, you're going to get a little bit more coverage, and it's probably more people are going to hear about the other tournament. But this one is so special to me. It's like, WAN Bass does such a great job making this a special event. And as a Western fisherman, it's our Super Bowl out here, so and the other thing is you just look at the names of the guys that have won. And it's the who's who of tournament fishing out West. I mean, if you look at, if you were to put together a Western Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, which WAN Bass is actually starting this year, the dudes on that, I would say 75% of them are Hall of Famers, so pretty special.
Yeah, it's always interesting. Rick Clunn, 4-time Classic winner, always talks about the U.S. Opens he's won and fished in, and it's something special about it. It's maybe kind of hard to put your finger on what it is, but it's no doubt. How many of these Opens have you fished?
I think I've maybe fished 6 or 7. I fished one very young, like 18 years old, and I've never been able to do it every single year. I started fishing on tour probably in like 2013, and there would be like a scheduling conflict about every other year. Yeah. So anytime I've had the opportunity to, I've done it. I think 6 or 7, and I've never really even threatened to win one of them. I've had some good finishes, maybe at 11th, to 13th, 17th, stuff like that. But and I've had the chance, like been close going into the last day and then didn't have a good last day or whatever. Last year I was like in 9th going into the last day and straight blanked the last day. So, and that's Lake Mead. It's a different lake, but so I was so nervous in this one because after that first day, I knew the fishing was kind of right up my alley on this lake. The way the pattern was set up, and I knew I had a really good chance. And you don't get that chance that often, right? Like Absolutely. If you let it slip away, you have to wait all the way until next year, and then you just never know what's going to happen next year. So it was a moment that I had to seize.
For those who don't know, the U.S. Open is traditionally on Lake Mead, where a good 5 fish limit might weigh 10 pounds. That'd be a mega bag.
Mm-hmm.
Because of low water conditions this year, the event was moved to Lake Mojave, the next river that is just south of, I guess it's south. It's the one below
That's
Lake
right.
Mead,
Yep.
on the Colorado River chain. And oh my gosh, Lake Mojave showed out. I got we 11 bass over 5 pounds in this event, dozens over 4 pounds. It's like you guys were fishing at St. Lawrence.
Yeah, the weights were like just a classic Great Lakes smallmouth tournament, right? I mean, they
Yeah.
didn't go quite down as far, but if you look towards the top of the standings, the guys caught some huge fish. And yeah, I would say this Lake Mojave, and I have like no experience there. I fished there 2 days in July just to look at it, and then this tournament. So I can't speak from experience, but from just my quick glance at it over the last week, it seems like it's a super balanced fishery, and the fish have really good genetics. So like anytime the average size is as good as it is here at Mojave, I think it's got the perfect amount of bass, the perfect amount of bait. The whole ecosystem is working really, really well for the fish to be that big and healthy. Now, it's not easy to go out there and catch 100 bass. It might be in April, but right now it's hard to go get bit. But when you get bit, they're really big ones. The award or the reward of getting bit is pretty high.
Yeah, I hadn't done the math yet until you just mentioned that. But your winning weight, 61 pounds, 61 and 3/4 pounds, that's above a 4 pound average.
It's crazy. And
Unheard of on the Colorado River.
if you look at, so they had the Laughlin Open for one bass in April, I think late March, and
Right.
the fish were on beds and the fishing was amazing. And that tournament showed what's in the lake, and I knew the fishing would be a lot different and more difficult when we came back now. So you couldn't expect those types of weights as a whole, but it showed what's possible out there, what's in the lake. And a lot of 20-pound bags in that tournament,
Yeah.
a lot of them. So we all knew that there'd be a couple 20-pound bags, but to be able to average that was
Right.
shocking to me, man. I was pretty lucky.
Yeah. I mean, 61 pounds has got to be a record for a U.S. Open.
Yeah, there's no doubt about
I
that. I
can't
mean,
think of any
it's
time they've ever done. I mean, they might have got 45 pounds during Lake Mead's good years, but I don't think anything close to 60.
yeah, and I don't think of course, it's not a fair comparison. I'm definitely
Right.
not tooting my horn on this one but yeah, I mean, it Mead, like you said, if 10 pounds is like the golden standard there in the fall or the summer. If you can catch 10 pounds, you had a great day. That's your target, right? And
Yeah.
yeah, that was nothing to write home about this week.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about practice. You said you spent a couple of days there. I guess we call that pre-practice. What
Mm-hmm.
did you learn in those 2 days in July, and then what did you learn in practice?
Yeah, so I mean, I went in July when I found out they had moved it to Mojave. I knew I had a busy September and October, and I wasn't going to have time to put in a long practice during official practice. So I went before it went off limits just to look at the lake, see what it had to offer, see what the watercolor looked like, which I knew it would be clear. Um, but just see, if it differed from one section of the lake to the other, see what type of bait was there, do a little fishing. And I was surprised by a couple things. One was the water was a lot cooler than I expected in July. There was a lot of current moving through the lake, and it kept it a lot cooler. As hot as it is down there in Laughlin and Bullhead City, it wouldn't be surprising if the water was
Yeah.
90, but it
Yeah.
was in the upper 70s in July. And I'm thinking, wow, that's pretty interesting, that it doesn't really get any hotter than this. There was a lot of current, which obviously is going to change depending on what they're moving through the lake. But you could see how it's a real narrow lake. And
Yeah.
one other thing that I learned was current would be a big factor as well. Just the fish would set up in position based on current, without a doubt, if there was current moving.
That's interesting because we don't often think of those Colorado River lakes as being really big current lakes, but I could see how Mojave would set up that way. It is basically kind of a river, and if they are moving water, then all fish relate to current. Um, so did you find offshore spots then in July, or did you find those in practice?
I didn't do a ton of fishing in July, but the little bit I did, I caught some fish out deep, and I thought, wow, it's pretty cool. They're out here right now. It's highly doubtful they'll still be here in October. It typically when we fish this tournament in October, the fall's already set in, right? Like I remember the last
Yeah.
few years at Lake Mead. I don't know the last one that you fished, but you're wearing a sweatshirt and jeans, right? In the morning you take off. It's like it's not cold, but you've
Yeah.
had maybe one or two north fronts, you've had some north wind days, and it's cool in the morning. So the fall set in. Well, and that's what I expected going to Mojave, but Mojave was interesting because it was like the summer was it was still summer. I mean, we've had a very, very warm September and October. Temps were still 100 degrees. The water was still in the upper 70s, and fall hadn't truly set in. So that kept the fish on a lot of the same stuff that they were on last summer or in this summer.
Yeah.
Now, next year could be totally different. Next year, we might have an actual fall event. The dates might be the same, but it might fish more like a fall tournament. But in this case, it fished just like a summer tournament.
I saw in an interview that you did that you did a lot of your fish you saw on live sonar. It's going to
Yep.
make Randy Blockett really happy. But anyway, is that what you found in practice?
Yeah, in practice, I made a conceited effort to go shallow and deep, go back and forth. And the the biggest factor for me, I would say, when I was out deep was having confidence in my drop shot and my bait, and having confidence in the live scope. I feel like I've put a lot of time in looking at live scope for sure. And I've been lucky. I've been doing it all summer up north, on tour. So there's no rust at all, right? Like I'm as sharp as I'll ever be at it because I've been doing it for the last 2 months, looking at these smallmouth. And I could tell the difference between a carp and a catfish and a bass, and that was a really
Wow.
big deal. And I think maybe if a guy hasn't put quite as much time in, it might be hard to tell the difference
Yeah.
between certain types of fish. And if you spend a lot of time pitching at carp and catfish, you're have less time to put it in front of a bass, right?
Right.
So live scope was a big factor. There were some fish that I caught that I saw either on 2D or maybe just cast up to a good piece of structure.
Yeah.
But I would say more fish than not, I did see before catching for sure.
Hey, maybe you could drop a nugget on us right here. I mean, when you're looking at live scope and you're talking about being able to tell the difference between a bass and a carp and a catfish, a tip or two about that.
Yeah.
What's the difference?
Sure. I mean, it's a good question. And a lot of it comes to just getting the trained eye and practicing,
Yeah.
right? But there are some key giveaways. And what's funny is every lake, it's going to be different because you have different types of, you don't want to call them a rough fish, but I just use that term, for this example,
Yeah.
bass compared to another species of fish, whether it's a catfish, a carp, a walleye, a
Drum.
drum.
Yeah.
Yep. The bass are going to be always a little bit more of a solid mark because they're really dense fish, especially smallmouth. The smallmouth are so muscly and meaty that, when you see one on your live sonar, I use live scope, it's going to be a better echo. You're going to have a more solid white dot.
Like a bright
Whereas,
star.
yes,
Yeah.
that's a great way
Wow.
to describe it. It sounds like you're pretty familiar with it too. But yeah, it looks like a
I've seen
bright
a few,
star.
but I cannot sit here and tell you I could tell the difference. But when you're talking the way you're talking, it's making sense. And I know that what I've seen are really bright stars on that scope, and that
Mm-hmm.
makes sense.
It's very apparent. It's brighter. It's a harder return. Whereas the other fish are going to leave a duller return.
I've seen that
then
too.
the way that they position for sure, right? Like, and size, right? I mean, hey, if it's a 20-pound carp, it's going to look a lot bigger than a 3-pound smallmouth,
Yeah.
obviously, right?
Yeah.
But the way they position, this is something that you have to learn every time, every new body of water at every time, right? Because one week the smallmouth might be packed up. The next week they might be roaming by themselves. And same with the carp and catfish. One thing that was really interesting at Mojave this week was the catfish were really schooled up. So like you would see a school of these catfish and think the first couple times it's like, look at that school. Oh my God, you pitch in catfish. And
Wow.
you learn, you do that a couple times, and then ultimately you start to see that school and you don't pitch into them now.
Right.
And if you're not sure, you pitch. If you're
Yeah.
not sure, you throw at them, right?
Yeah.
But I think, and that was probably a big advantage for a couple of the other guys. Like I know Spencer is one of the best, forward facing sonar fishermen on the planet. And I guarantee he wasn't wasting time pitching at fish that weren't bass.
That's really, really cool. That's a great little nugget. We may splice that out and put that up as a single because I
Cool.
mean, I have watched so many live scope tutorials and things like that, and I don't know that I've heard anybody explain it the way you just described. That's pretty good.
Well, thanks.
Yeah, real question. So in the days that I fished Mojave, it was primarily a largemouth fishery, and I can remember, God, catching one keeper largemouth on a spinnerbait in the last 15 minutes for one fish in a team tournament, and being thrilled that we scored points on that day.
Tough,
Did
tough.
did
Yeah.
did largemouth figure into that event at all?
Guys definitely caught some nice ones. I really think the falling water hurt the largemouth bite, though.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
it faded out. Some guys had good solid largemouth bags the first day, and it was tough to keep that going. If that lake has got a tremendous amount of shallow water cover, like
Hmm.
amazing for a desert lake, lots of wood, lots of grass, tules, stuff like that. But when it's 8 or 10 feet down, all that stuff's out of the water, and those largemouth, the smallmouth didn't get rehomed because they lived out on the flats or out off the deeper structure, and they didn't have to move, but
Yeah,
those largemouth had their home taken from them. You know
yeah,
what I mean?
yeah.
So they were a lot harder to find and figure out. And I ran across a few, but it wasn't, I mean, even in practice, when I would go shallow, I would still catch more smallmouth than largemouth.
Hmm.
I think if that tournament was held a month before or a month after, you'd see a lot more largemouth.
Yeah, that could be. That could be. All right. So day one, come to the scales with 23 pounds. Unheard of at a U.S. Open. How did that day unfold for you?
It was an unreal day. Luckily things just went perfectly. I mean, we caught two giants off our first spot, one giant off our second spot,
Wow.
another off our third, and another off our fourth, and we were done. I mean, we were done by 9:30. Um, it had just gone perfectly, and really just spent the whole day, babysitting the fish and trying to not, trying to save stuff, right? And it was
Hmm.
tough because the lake was getting really hammered, and you're not fishing something because you want to save it, but you watch 10 other guys go fish it, and because they're going to fish it too, right? It's not good.
Yeah.
It was what it was. But yeah, it went perfect, and the fish were just, I mean, it was. I didn't expect that we would have that type of lead after the first day, but it was the perfect day on the water for sure.
And all your fish are coming on a drop shot.
All a drop shot flatworm in this case. Yeah. Like I said, I had some other stuff in practice, some reaction fish, but I never even had to go to them. I drop shot at every cast of the tournament.
So when you're throwing this drop shot, and I can understand if you don't want to share a color, but when you're in this situation, are you in your mind mimicking a bait fish, or are you mimicking a crawdad, or just something that looks like something the fish would want to eat?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I think, honestly, color is the least important in the equation to me, anyways, when I'm fishing for these smallmouth. I think if it's a flatworm and it's got the scent and it's got the profile, they're going to bite it. I mean, I've been in so many tournaments where I'm just going through different colors and not even caring what color.
Yeah.
This one, I ended up starting with green pumpkin just because it's a standby, and it was working, and I stuck with it. I later in the tournament, I switched through a couple different colors and caught a few fish on other colors, but though, I mean, the green was kind of the go-to, and you just can't go wrong with it.
Yeah. Yeah. So day two, another 20 pounds. Was it more the same? I mean,
Yeah,
just
it,
same
it
spots.
it went pretty well. A little bit of a shakeup as far as the spots. We went to our first couple spots from the day before and didn't get them, but I was like, I wonder if we're gonna have to work for them harder today, and we did a little bit, but ultimately we ended up catching most of our weight by 10 o'clock again. It came together relatively quick. I could tell it had gotten a little bit tougher, but again, after we got to that weight, I didn't. If our smallest fish was almost a 4 pounder, I did not want to be wasting fish that could be really precious the next day. So
Yeah.
I spent the whole day looking for new water. And caught a few random fish, made maybe one more call off of a new spot. But again, it went well. It went really well. and pretty stress-free first 2 days to this point. Yep.
So, without being specific about your spots, are these canyon type spots, or is this big basin? Because the big basin is pretty wide open and flat. But are these canyon spots that you're fishing primarily?
I used a little bit of everything, and you had to because the lake got so pressured.
Yeah.
You couldn't just like focus in on one thing. So I was fishing different depths. And some of them were obvious places like a point or something like that out off the bank. Some of them were pretty subtle, like just
Mhm.
little subtle rises or, parts of flat, sides of flat, stuff like that. So, I mean, and that was part of it. I fished probably 50 spots a day. It wasn't like I was really relying on one spot. It was just relying on the pattern and relying on your equipment and sticking to the process more than, I need this one spot to pay off. I hope no one's sitting on it, that type of thing, which was
Yeah.
good. And that's what helped, with the type of pressure that the lake had.
So day three, you weighed 18 pounds, and I mean, I can't imagine 18 pounds being something that anybody would ever think poorly of on on a Colorado
Sure.
River lake. But it wasn't the same as 23 or 20 the first 2 days. And Spencer made a little bit of a run and got up fairly close. How did that third day go? You said the first 2 days were not stressful. That third day, I'm getting a sense, might have been a little stressful.
Yeah, well, it was incredibly stressful. The fishing was, and I knew Spencer, I knew was not going to let up. He was probably catching the most fish out of anyone in the top, it sounded like, and he's just lethal, out
Yeah.
there. So I knew he wasn't going to let up. I was really worried about Cliff too, um,
Oh
who
yeah,
was
Cliff
fishing
knows that
second or
lake
third at
very
the
well.
time, and my day started really poorly. I mean, I didn't have a good fish for about 2 hours. I had two really small fish, and I just needed some momentum. I actually went to a grass line that I hadn't fished the entire tournament just to get some momentum. I went over and caught one 3-pounder, and just got the ball rolling a little bit and just kept hammering, kept hammering. I had a good partner, Mike, who was really, I actually know him from fishing back home, really good, experienced tournament fisherman, been around, seen a lot. And he, was fishing hard and keeping me calm too. Cause like typically I'm not a guy, I feel like I do a pretty good job of keeping a level head on the water, but just the pressure of this tournament, having that lead going in the last day and then having such a poor start after having good starts the last couple days, and also knowing that everything I was fishing was getting clobbered. It was getting worse and worse every day. Just because that's the nature of tournament fishing. You still have 200 boats on the water. The stuff that they were fishing maybe wasn't panning out, so they're going to have to make adjustments. And the adjustments ended up being the same stuff that I was fishing. So I was getting hammered. I knew it wasn't going to be easy, and just battled through the day. And literally about every hour and a half, you'd catch a good one, and took all day. Then, with about we had, I don't know, 16 and a half, 17 pounds. I knew it was going to be really close. And then with about 20 minutes to go, I hook a giant finally, and I lose it right at the boat. And I mean, a real crusher right after it was so hard to get bit. And that was the fish I needed. And I lost it. And no use crying over spilt milk. 5 minutes later, I had it, hopefully, in my opinion, back together. And I caught a 4-pounder and made one final call to get to that 18 pounds. And we won by a pound and a half. So that fish was really critical because if I wouldn't have caught it, it would have been very close, very close. But yeah, what a stressful day. The whole thing was, I was, I couldn't unwind after the tournament was over. I couldn't unwind. It was crazy.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's an exciting thing. Uh, you mentioned something about going over and fishing a grass line that you hadn't fished. Talk about the process that leads you to do something like that, because I'm always amazed by how many of these tournaments are hinged on guys just making an intuitive move. What called you to that grass line?
Well, I had been saving it and I didn't think it had a bunch of giant fish on it, but it had some solid fish. And there's one thing that if there's one thing that in all of sports is really important, it's momentum, right? And
Yeah.
having a good state of mind. And a 3-pounder in a lot of cases, and this tournament wasn't going to make it or break it for anybody, but I needed momentum. If I would have kept just beating my head against the wall, going to some of these same places and not catching fish, I could have gone on a downhill spiral, right?
Yep. Yep.
But just making a move, going to a different part of the lake, catching a bass, like, that is a positive move, gives you that positive momentum. And
Yeah.
it worked in this case. It doesn't always work, but you know, I'm always a big advocate in a 5 fish tournament to just be fishing for the 5 biggest bites right from the get-go. But
Yep.
sometimes when you're having a real tough day, you need a little momentum. And even if that means pulling into an area where you think you might catch a couple fish that aren't going to win the tournament for you, but just get you rolling again and get you clicking again, sometimes it can be really helpful.
That fish ended up going to the weigh-in with you.
It did. It did. It was our smallest bass, but it helped. It was a 3 1/4, something like that,
Yeah.
and it made the team.
Very cool. That what a great tournament. Shift gears a little bit right now. You are, as we know, and by the way, Spencer's going to be joining the Bass Pro Tour next year, right?
Yeah, we're all thrilled about that.
That's
It's gonna
going
be
to be
great
pretty
to
cool
fish
for him.
against him next year. Yeah, some
Yeah.
sarcasm, and I like Spencer. He's great, but he's gonna be a tough cookie to fish against.
I mean, I think the guys that came on this year, pretty strong. Dakota Abera, guys like that,
Oh yeah,
pretty strong. It's really neat to see how that system is starting to funnel some new guys in there that are pretty good fishermen.
very good. Yep, that's how it's supposed to work.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you recently got to participate in the Bass Pro Tour's new team events. You were a captain of one of the teams in that series. I know you can't tell us the results, but can you tell us a little bit about the experience?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was really fun, without, going too much into detail. It was a special thing that I've never done before. I had Andy Morgan and Brandon Coulter on my team, both great guys, great fishermen. And, when I picked the team, I tried to pick guys that I knew I'd be able to communicate with, that I got along with, that could bring different skill sets to the team. And ultimately, into that I knew I could learn from, moving
Yeah,
forward. So it was pretty cool to you're not holding anything back, right? You're just every single minute you're going back and forth and talking about um what's in your head, what you're thinking, asking what's in your head, what are you thinking. So I can't wait to watch and see kind of how the other guys broke it down too, because this is going to be to me the most educational TV in fishing that you could ever watch. I mean, there's so much like legit information being thrown around. It's crazy.
are you guys like on a live mic with each other the whole time, or do you have
That's
to do you have
right.
to buzz in, or what? How does that work?
We're on a live mic. So, I mean,
Wow,
literally every single thing that happens out there. I mean, you've got a little headset in and it's the three of you and you're just
wow,
chatting. Yep. And they're listening in the studio, but you don't hear anything from anybody else. It's just the three of you all day, telling jokes or telling each other how to catch a bass.
very cool, very cool. We're hearing about some possible format changes for the BPT tour, possibly starting next year. Either moving to a 5 fish format or staying the way it is now. What are your thoughts about that? What do you
It's it's
hear?
a it's a good question. And I've been so caught up in the open over the last couple of weeks that I've been out of a lot of those conversations. But for me, I'll be happy either way. The 5 fish, I love fishing 5 fish. I think it's honestly, and I don't want it to come across the wrong way, but it's a lot easier. I think a lot of people have the idea that it's easier to go catch every fish counts. And that's just not the case. I mean, it's just not. I mean, we talked about this tournament. I would have had to have burned all my fish the first day, and I wouldn't have been
Right,
able to save anything.
right.
So after you fish a couple days in every fish, you got to find all new fish all week. So it's so difficult. So it's refreshing to go back and fish a 5 fish event because you can save this and you can strategize and plan for that. And with every fish counts, you just go balls to the wall every minute. You know what I mean? So they're both fun, and that's really fun doing the every fish counts. I think it's made me a better fisherman. It's helped me learn how to adjust on the fly better. But I'll be happy either way. I mean, it's if we continue to fish every fish counts, I'll continue to learn and grow from that. I think over time, I think the stats show that I've done a little bit better on 5 fish tournaments. I've been competitive in the every fish counts, but I haven't won one yet. It's I'm really good at making the knockout round, but I have a real hard time making that final day in the Bass Pro Tour. It's just for whatever reason, when I start running out of fish, I run out of fish. And I'm working through it and I'm learning and I'll be happy to get another chance to try to keep getting better at it next year. But if we went back to 5 fish, I'd be cool with that too.
So what's the rest of the year look like? Getting ready for next year? What else? You probably have some more of those team events coming, right?
For the rest of the fall, the way they did the team deal, it's pretty spread out. So I'm pretty, the next couple months are pretty slow for me, which is good. I need it. I've got 2 young kids, a 4 and a 6-year-old.
Wow.
So I'm happy to be home to spend some time, just take them fishing, take them to the zoo, hang out at home, just all the normal stuff, that you have to miss out on during the year. So, my daughter's birthday is coming up next week and just little stuff like that. I'll fish at home. I do a little bit of guiding on the side, electronics trips and stuff like that. And then I do host a podcast too. It's called Anglers Happy Hour. We're very consistently doing it every week. And over the last, 6 months or so, things have gotten busy. We do 1 or 2 a month, but we'll get that rolling again and start doing that weekly as well.
Sounds good. Josh, thanks for taking some time to be with us today. I appreciate this. Great story, great breakdown of the tournament, and best of luck to you. We'll be in touch.
And it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, Keith. Appreciate it big time.
All right. Take care.
See ya.
All right. What a shootout that was at Lake Mojave. What a great win for Josh Bertrand. Over 60 pounds in 3 days. I have lived in this region all of my life. I have fished Lake Mead, Lake Mojave, Lake Havasu, and the thought that you could make and consistently catch 20-pound limits 3 straight days, it just seems rare. And it seems even more rare in the difficult season of the fall when fish could literally be anywhere. So hats off to Josh Bertrand and everybody else who did so well in that tournament. What a slugfest that thing was. Also, Josh Bertrand had some pretty interesting ideas about the future of the Bass Pro Tour. Pretty interesting stuff there. Well, folks, that's going to do it for this episode. Again, thanks for being with us. Please hit the subscribe button. Until next time, keep those life vests zipped and clipped. Keep both hands on the wheel. Be safe out there, and we'll talk to you again very soon.